In order to understand the depth of Martin Hill's trauma, we must go back to where it all began. In 1999, he had just turned 10 and lived in London with his father. He remembered this period as happy. In a photo from that time, he could be seen with a smile as wide as a promise. The preceding months, however, had been difficult. His mother had left them to return to Paris. By mutual agreement, and so as not to cut him off from his friends, adding another separation on top of their separation, it was decided that young Martin would remain with his father. He saw his mother every weekend and during the holidays. The Eurostar, though more often praised for bringing France and England together, also hugely eased logistics for separated families. To tell the truth, Martin was very little affected by the change. Like all children who grow up seeing their parents argue, he could no longer bear their permanent state of disagreement. Jeanne had ended up hating everything that she had once loved about John. Where she had once adored his artistic, dreamy side, now she saw nothing more than a lazy lump. They had met at a Cure concert in 1984, at a time when John had the same haircut as the singer, a sort of baobab tree sprouting from his head. Jeanne was working as an au pair for a wealthy yet strict young English couple, and she wore her hair in a pristine bob. If compatibility were measured in haircuts, they never would have met. What is more, Jeanne had ended up at the concert somewhat by chance, persuaded by another French girl, Camille, whom she had met in Hyde Park. Both girls noticed this bizarre individual at the back of the room, looking wasted. He was downing beer after beer while the band played song after song. After a while, his knees gave way. The two girls went over to him to help him back on his feet. He tried to thank them, but his furry tongue was beyond producing any intelligible sound. They took him to the exit so he could get some air. John was just lucid enough to feel sorry for himself. Camille, a devoted fan, returned to the concert, while Jeanne stayed beside the troubled young man. Later, she would ask herself, should I have fled? The moment we met, he was already falling apart. That's not nothing. Mistrust first impulses. They are nearly always good, as Henri de Montherlant wrote. Or at least, Jeanne thought it was he who had written it, most likely in The Girls, a book that all her friends had been devouring at the time. Years later, she would discover that the quote was in fact by Talleyrand. In any case, Jeanne let herself be won over by the boy's strangeness. It bears mentioning that he had a particular, perhaps what one would call British, sense of humour. As he regained his wits, he said, falteringly, "I've always dreamed of being at the back of a rock concert downing beers. I've always dreamed of being that cool guy. But nothing doing. I'm just a loser who loves Schweppes and Schubert."